Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of the Eat, Sleep, Arsenal Repeat podcast, episode 12. And we've got the full team back together. That's what the international break does. It gives you that time to relax, rest, recover, get rid of any niggling injuries that you've got in the group. And we've managed to do that. And we've got the full team at full strength today. I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Raj. How you doing, mate? You good, you well?
Yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to the return of real football this weekend. So
Yes, indeed. Haven't we all been willing that to return and get back into existence? Sophie, how are we?
Epic. Good to be back. Thank you for having me once again. At ease, everyone.
Always. All good. And Owen, how are you, my friends?
Bored of this silly international football. I can't wait for real football to return. And it's great to have the band back together. We were sort of like a late 90s boy band there for a while, you know, we all went away and did our separate solo career stuff, but eventually we've all cashed in and come back for the grand reunion.
Yeah. Right, my missus is getting ready to try and get ready to tickets for Busted's reunion tour. Oh, yes. So
my missus, don't act like you aren't into that.
Which one of you is Harry Styles? Which one of you is Harry Styles?
We're going to do the One Direction route.
He's the only.
He's the first one I thought of. I was going to go Robbie Williams, but I thought I didn't want to age myself.
There you
go. Let's kick off with the international break. Doc, what's your tip for fans who have been struggling for future international breaks? What have you been doing throughout this to get through it?
I'm just been watching. I've watched a few of the previous matches for certain. Been watching a lot of the comps. Watched a lot of Declan Rice comps for some reason. I saw a bunch of them on Twitter, so saw that. Yeah, that's about it. Just been relaxing for the most part. So
I'm not escaping from Arsenal at all. Just watching transfer compilations on YouTube.
I mean, it wasn't bad for me because I was still adapting. Not still, but coming back. Jordan is a big time jump, so coming back probably wasn't a bad time to have that.
Indeed, yeah, had a time away, which sounded fantastic. So, any recommendations for people that you experienced whilst on your 2 weeks off?
What I've noticed is I think some Arsenal fans took some time off. You can see that when you're doing a show or in the live chat, who's there, who isn't. Feel like everyone's recuperating, rejuvenating before this 10-game stretch, the final act of the season, the crescendo, right? So, we've been doing shows to keep people company, talking a little bit of old school stuff. Covered the US men's team, so got to have a little wee chat, ask a couple questions to Matt Turner, which was fun. Yeah. Austin Trusty was in the squad as well. And Balogun was stealing the headlines without even playing. So that's what I've been up to and how I've been coping.
He needed the Peter Odemwingie version of international football, driving to the US, which was special. But yeah, no, we're still to get confirmation on what his future looks like on an international scene. Contacts of mine tell me he has no need to rush that decision at the moment. And I think that's probably the advice he's been given. Lastly, Owen, anything special happening into the international break?
Yeah, I've sort of converted to religion, and not one in particular, probably about 5 or 6. I've simply been locked in a room praying for the safe return of every single one of Arsenal's players that are out on international duty.
That's fair.
It's nice. I absolutely despise this period. It just gets to me. Look, I understand national pride and the want to play for your country and support your country in this, but when there's such high stakes, like we're talking multi-million. Exactly, Sophie. Thank you. Now I feel it's bad luck that I haven't rubbed it. Now, if anything happens, that's your fault. But there's multi-millions of pounds on stake here, and there's people running about. Like we've seen. I'm sure we can discuss the Rodri tackle on Odegaard. There's just so many narratives that can be pushed out there through the course of this, and it's a nerve-wracking time enough as it is, let alone without this meaningless football being played with valuable assets.
That's probably a good place to start. Raj, as you were watching so many compilations, you probably did catch a glimpse of Rodri's tackle on Martin Ødegaard. Ødegaard played and completed their 1-1 draw with Georgia this evening. Kvaratskhelia starting, of course, for the Georgians and will be their kind of leading light in the next decade plus, you'd imagine, on the international scene. But Norway struggled in that game, it seems, and only came out of that 1-1 draw. But it was the game against Spain in which, obviously, we saw that attack from Rodri, which Kieran Tierney and co have certainly given them some karma and retribution, because they're currently, I was looking at it, was it 2-0? I don't know if it's still 2-0 as we record, but 2-0 up on Spain. Unlucky Rodri. But what did you make of that tackle in that moment?
I mean, it was terrible. That was a terrible tackle. I don't know how it's not a penalty. That's beyond me. I mean,
I'll tell you how. The referees are dreadful, mate.
Yeah, I don't understand. That was like, I don't understand that. It's just a terrible tackle. Went in, studs up late. I mean, luckily, it was like Ødegaard came out of it without, he played 90 today, so he's okay. So that was okay. I know Rodri, he had a tackle versus Tierney in the match that Tierney picked up a knock, but he walked off to the bench and he was on the pitch afterwards today too. So, and based on the engagement with that tweet, I think, to Sophie's point, Arsenal fans are definitely coming back because everyone's a bit irritated right now with Rodri. So it doesn't look like, it looks like everything's okay. Obviously, there's that slight, I think, precautionary with Partey, right? So it doesn't seem like anyone has picked up an overt injury. There's a reason why the physio went with Partey. So it sounds like that was just all precautionary, and everyone should be ready to go for Leeds, other than the Saka playing 2 full 90s, I believe, right? And so just fatigue potentially coming into play. So we'll see where that goes, of course. But I expected him to play. I expected Saka to play a lot. So at least
England, we don't really have another right winger from England's perspective. Jared Bowen's the obvious one. But who's going to come in and replace Saka in this team? And so it's very difficult to pinpoint who does. Obviously, Sophie, another thing that we've been able to use the break for it's a bit of a cheat code for players that get injured just before and that are going to be out for a little bit. William Saliba was that guy. Information coming out yesterday, because it's going out, of course, tomorrow morning as we record it on Tuesday evening, that it's supposedly a minor hamstring issue that could cost him a couple of weeks. It's frustrating, but I suppose that's one of the benefits of the international break, isn't it? That you've got kind of a week and a bit of no club football to allow players to rest and recuperate. And in the case of, say, Gabriel Jesus, to get more match fitness. Smith Rowe is arguably as well, who's playing for the under-21s.
Yeah, that was great seeing Smith Rowe play and score as well. That was brilliant for us. That's a player that last season scored 10 goals and accepted his role coming off the bench. I mean, seriously, if he can play a role in these last 10 games the way we know that he can, that would just add a totally different layer to how we approach this final act of the season. The rest, at some point, you as an Arsenal fan, you say, do you want to keep going with the momentum? Let's just close this, right? But you're 100% right, because, the fatigue is kicking in. We've got, Europa League, I think that took a lot out of us, that last game. Now we're back to playing, once a week. So I think it's good for us that, some of these players have had the rest. Saliba not playing. I mean, I hope it's just a couple games, because I don't really want Rob Holding playing more than 2 games. We talked about him a little bit, but that's the only concern. Yes, the rest, but he's still going to miss Leeds and Liverpool, is what you're saying, Tom?
Yeah, it could be potentially Liverpool. We don't know the full extent. It could be that he just misses Leeds from the sound of things, but there aren't any guarantees. We'll hear from Arteta on Friday, 1:30 p.m. is his press conference.
Yeah, I mean, we have to trust that Rob Holding can come in and do a job for a couple games, right? Hopefully he's learned from his mistake last season. He had a really good game just before the international break, deputized well. So, yeah, I mean, for us, I think it was good. And real quick, just to touch on this, because I mentioned it to you, the question that kept coming up to Matt Turner in the US men's national team press conference was Arsenal and the Premier League. And usually you have to be really careful, as you know, Tom, about maybe asking too many Premier League Arsenal questions during an international presser. But they were allowing it and everyone was riding with it. And the thing that kept coming up was this break, and if it's an ill-timed moment for Arsenal. And his answer was so elite, the way he handled it and the way he talked about it, the mentality of the manager, but the players, and he put the onus on the players. And that's something that we haven't heard in a long, long time. And so they clearly were prepared for this moment. And he communicated that really well in such a concise, deliberate way, that this international break was no vacay. You're not going to see your buddies. You're going to do your job and you're coming back and you're going to have the same mindset. So yes, good timing, but also totally locked in. And if he's locked in and he's not starting every week, what's that starting 11 looking like? Sorry, that took a little bit long, but then I remembered the Matt Turner thing.
Absolutely. And congratulations to Matt Turner on his baby daughter announcement as well. Of course, he did a gender reveal. I don't know if you saw the clips of that. Did you see it? The kicking of the
Some people
ball?
did not like that, did they?
Did they not? I haven't seen it. I've only seen the video. I thought it was quite cool.
I don't know. I thought it was cute. It was a great way to end the game. And he was, he was their best player in the first half, making a great save. You can see his confidence. And he said that without Arsenal and playing with the players he is and Mikel, he's not starting for the United States. And yeah, congrats to him.
No, exactly. It's interesting that, Owen, because Matt Turner's not the only one, of course, that is still playing for their country, despite not necessarily starting for their club. Jakub Kiwior started both games for Poland in their games over the break. It didn't apparently play that well in the first one, but was better in the second. It's difficult sometimes to see kind of pathways for players like Jakub Kiwior when there's already someone like Gabriel, in his place, and seeing what he might bring to the team. But do you see a potential future for him, or any way of getting minutes in the side?
Absolutely. I think it's really harsh to try and compare him, which is inevitable. He's obviously playing in the same position as Gabriel, but something that we've sort of cast aside when we're thinking about Gabriel is that he really entered the water, if you like that, with in a turbulent time. He was playing with David Luiz. We were going through a really rough period that I'd say that if you probably looked back at him individually, he's probably come on leaps and bounds since then into a much more polished player. So to compare Jakub Kiwior to him, I think would be a little unfair. He's obviously somebody who I think hasn't how many cumulative minutes has this guy played since leaving Serie A? Not many at all, and he's coming in, adapting to a new league. Give the guy time, let's learn from our mistakes. We've done this before, the signings, not everybody can be Alejandro Trossard and hit the ground running at 100 miles an hour. Seemingly from people that know much more about the player than I do. Harry Symeou is someone we know who's madly into his Italian football, and he swears down the fact that he's a very, very good, accomplished player. There's been small glimpses, I think, on the ball and stuff at times. His range of passing looks quite good. Physically, he looks quite good. I think at this stage it's just about getting minutes into his legs. The unfortunate thing for him, I think, is those options are going to be limited for the remainder of this season.
He actually played at left back for Poland in their game against Albania as well. 90 minutes there. Left centre back again there. 3-1 defeat against Czech Republic. But interesting that he's got that versatility. Tomiyasu's out. Tierney, of course, is still there as well. But it's good to have options and have those players that can potentially play there. Moving away from kind of the international break and looking ahead to the game against Leeds United, of course, this weekend. One of the big kind of dominating stories is yesterday, as in Tuesday. And as I said before, this is launching and live premiering on Wednesday morning. Was that the last announcement of the available tickets for Arsenal against Wolves released for silver members. And it's fair to say that on social media, there was a bit of a meltdown. Fans desperately trying to get hold of tickets, weren't able to do it. And of course, we've got this issue at the moment with, unfortunately, bot accounts that are kind of gobbling up all of the available member tickets. I actually have written a piece that's out already at this time that you'll be hearing this, in which I actually spoke to Arsenal and got a comment from them about, it's quite a lengthy comment, so I won't read it all to you now. You can read the whole comment on football.london. It's the highlighted piece on the website. But what I will tell you from that is that we've implemented, this is them speaking, a spokesperson from the club told me, we've implemented new and improved technology to prevent bot activity, to do everything we can to put tickets in the hands of our supporters. This has resulted in more than 300,000 suspected bots being blocked from the ticketing site in recent weeks. And that's just recent weeks. So that kind of gives you the scale and extent. When we heard from them in February, they said they blocked around 25,000. So we're talking now upwards of 275,000 in the space since February that they've now managed to block with this technology. And still, fans are very angry and frustrated that they're not being able to get tickets. So Raj, obviously the club had taken this seriously. They're trying to put measures in place to prevent this, but it's a problem that doesn't necessarily seem to be slowing down from the reaction that we're seeing as well.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, to me, it reminds me of more of a U.S. sport where you see this all the time, and the teams don't really do anything about it, unfortunately. So the price just go up and up and up. So at the least, I'm glad to see the club taking, relatively immediate action on it. It's still unfortunate because you do see more and more pictures of like empty seats because seats are going unsold because they're being gobbled up, right? And so, I mean, I hope that they're able to continue to, kind of make that tech more and more aware of bots and, get bots off the site. And so I'm sure bot technology is also advancing, right? So it goes back and forth on that regard.
Yeah, and I mean, so obviously coming from an MLS perspective, Arsenal playing against the MLS All-Stars in the summer, tickets went on sale for them yesterday and sold out within 5 hours, I believe. But I've seen a lot of comments regarding the price that was attached to these tickets. What have you made of the reaction that you've seen, if any?
I just think, by the way, real quick, are there other clubs that have the same problem we do, Tom? Do you know if this
is or heard of it this season? I've not seen the same issues. There's obviously a lot of it being attributed to the fact that Arsenal being in a title challenge has made them rightfully in high demand, but there are these bot accounts that obviously are picking up these tickets.
It's similar to if you're not winning, right? Fans were complaining about ticket prices, definitely more so when we're not really putting out a competitive team in the Premier League. It seems like when you're paying premium prices, but you're not getting a return on your investment, the product isn't good, then there's more reason to complain. There's less complaining about price and it's more availability this season, right? But in general, concert tickets are so I don't know what the price is like in England these days, but concert tickets here are ridiculously priced. Sporting event tickets are ridiculously priced. This is why people still go to baseball sometimes, because you could still get a ticket for maybe $20 and enjoy a long day out with the Chicago dog, Tom. You have a great time. I cover LA Galaxy and LAFC. LA Galaxy haven't been doing as well, but their ticket prices are still premium prices because, location, product, they're not going to dilute their own. They may dilute their own product on the field by making bad decisions, but from the marketability point of view, these sports teams are going to try and maximize every single cent and dollar. I feel for fans. Here's who I feel for. I feel for fans who have been going during the dog times. And it's those fans that are right now struggling to get tickets. And look, Arsenal are good again. People want to go. That's a good thing. But I do feel for the fans, and I know a few of them that can't get tickets. And, they were there for games against, whoever during the dark times.
Yeah, and there have been. I mean, even recently, we think of this finishing back-to-back 8th place finishes, and there were fans. Obviously, there was a season where we didn't have fans in grounds, but fans that went after the pandemic and were there to witness some pretty terrible results. Still after that point and before that, and there's also the other side of the coin, which is fans that dream of going to the Emirates from abroad, that get up at ridiculous o'clock in the morning, like obviously yourself, Sophie, and Raj both do, to watch the games, and obviously those over in Australia which get up, and obviously other Eastern countries that watch at ridiculous times in the morning again. that dream of coming to the Emirates and they can't plan their trips because it's impossible to be able to buy tickets and to then get a flight over and accommodation on seating with, family and friends that you want to go with. And obviously Arsenal, you are limited in the stadium to 60,000 seats. So just under 6,000 seats that are available to be purchased. And then there's only a proportion of that can be bought, because a lot of that is taken up by season ticket holders as well, quite rightly, who have their season tickets and have had them for year and year and year. But it's frustrating for fans, obviously, that want to go. Owen, kind of your thoughts on this? And part of the piece actually was getting some reaction from fans who go through the process of this every single week, month, that sit kind of for an hour and a half in a queue and then don't end up getting the ticket. It does seem like something could be done to try and change this. Someone suggested to me that they should do like a ballot system instead, where you all kind of enter a ballot and then you're contacted if you were successful in getting a ticket, which could be maybe a way around the bot system.
Yeah. And look, any ideas I'd be completely open to. I know I have, through family ties, access to 2 season tickets, and over recent years and in the past, they've been accessible for almost any game you want. And literally this season, you have absolutely no chance of getting into them. I haven't sat in them seats once this year. The last game I was over for was Man United, which was obviously a brilliant game. But on the train ride in, I was with 3 other Irish guys that had just met whilst on the train, and they were saying that they were being quoted 750 quid for a ticket to the match, and they were landing over with no tickets whatsoever. And what aggravates me is that, and let's not only say just to ticket touts, even there's, we all see the people shifting out tickets outside the stadiums and stuff like that. There's merchants that want to go out and take people for everything they have. And I feel for those guys who are coming over who have potentially children at home, have a missus, have bills to pay, have rent to pay, and they just love the club, and they could literally take them for anything that you want, and leave them in really difficult positions. But listen, the one thing that I will say is that, and this might sound a bit spoilt if you'd like to say that, but even as I mentioned, my access to those 2 season tickets, where were these people, as Sophie mentioned, when we were getting slapped, when I was going over and not knowing if we were going to win and not knowing what kind of players we were going to see put out on the pitch? Where were all these people then? You even hear talk of a lot of people who are saying people who have had season tickets are rocking up for the first time in maybe 5, 6, 7 years. And that's what I don't like. Being a supporter is about being there through the rough and the good times. And unfortunately, it's just the way the system works, is that these people are in the position to have the tickets in hand, and it's their right to be in those seats. But look, the bot thing obviously is a massive issue, but I think we all need to come to the realization as well, is that the 60,000 seater capacity, like how many Arsenal fans are there nationwide? I tell you what really does drive me mad though, it's more so the embargo with 3 o'clock kickoffs. If we're having this issue, if people can't even get into the stadium, like how much I know I pay 80 quid a month at least for Sky, £35 a month for BT Sports. You've got your Amazon Prime that games are on as well. So I think what's aggravating, there needs to be a blanket approach to football that makes the game more accessible to UK-based fans, because it's unfortunate. Even you mentioned there, Tom, it's pricey enough for someone like you in Kent to go to an Arsenal match. Yeah. I have to pay for flights and hotels and everything as it is. It's really they're squeezing as much money out of the common fan as they can, and it's pretty aggravating and isolating at times, I think.
How long before clubs do their own deal with networks? Raj, like Notre Dame, do their own deal with ABC, right? How far away are we from stuff like that happening?
I mean, it's a great question. I don't know the legality. I don't know how it works in terms of legality of it in the UK versus the US, which is much more kind of just like US, just wherever the money is, it works. So that's the US in a nutshell. That's why you see the Arsenal prices going for 300, right? I don't know how it works in the UK to that extent, and how much it's still governed, or how much it's regulated. That's the word I'm looking for, regulated. So,
I mean, what's stopping Arsenal from doing their own deal with NBC or Amazon?
It's obviously the Premier League own the television rights, and then they will divvy up the money to the clubs based
Right,
upon
right.
where you finish. Or I don't even know if it's where you finish. I think maybe there is an equal spread actually of television rights, whereas that in other countries like Spain, for instance, that's not the case. You know, for a long time, Barcelona and Real Madrid were getting a huge chunk of the television profits, which is why we saw such kind of a split in and a gap appearing between the richest and the poorest clubs in countries like Spain.
Right.
Whereas in the UK, we're starting to see that split more. I don't know if Arsenal would have any power to be able to go to a television company because it would breach your conflict.
Would the Super League do that? So the Super League, for example, they could do that. They
so
could make their own TV deal.
To leave, the Premier League or European competition and just jumped into it. I mean, the Premier League have made up rules now which are in place since the Super League fiasco, which dictate that you cannot be a Premier League club effectively and join one of these Super Leagues. Like if you can't do it. I think that, we all know eventually we're moving towards that. I mean, the Champions League is restructuring into basically what is a Super League. You're moving into a league round robin system where some clubs are going to gain access to that tournament due to their coefficient or their historic ranking, even if they don't qualify, which is wrong. And massively hypocritical of their own and UEFA's own kind of criticisms of the Super League. There's a Club World Cup that's going to get restructured now that from FIFA. They're looking to, I think, expand that to something like 32 clubs based upon coefficients. So look, that's going to get televised, and obviously the rights that'll go. But I think, dialing it all the way back to the rudimentary level of the 3 p.m. embargoes, the idea of that, for those listening that aren't aware, the reason why we have that is that the idea is to encourage UK-based fans to go watch their local clubs,
right?
Rather, because if there's a Premier League game on, it's harder for the local lower league clubs to attract punters to games, which I understand absolutely and entirely. But I think there has to be an argument that now, as fast forward ahead as 2023, that, not being able to watch. I mean, I think it's something like 4 out of the last 5 or 6 Arsenal games have not been televised in the UK.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, here we get everything, right? I can watch any game anytime, right?
Yeah, with Peter Drury on commentary.
With Peter Drury as well, who has been a poet just lately.
That's just not fair.
It's just amazing.
It's getting to a stage now where I feel as though when I see Peter Drury in the press lounge, I almost feel tempted to put a tweet out like a transfer is being announced. Like, Peter Drury is here. He's going to be commentating on the game. Yeah.
I mean, he's just velvet. He's just amazing.
I always just don't understand why, even with the Premier League and Sky, for example, there isn't a subscription-based model where you pay for your blanket coverage of your Premier League, and for an additional cost, you subscribe to your team, whichever team that is. Now, how that money's distributed fairly throughout the league and throughout the football pyramid is a different story altogether. But as you said, Tom, 2023, the fact that I have to find means and methods to watch 3 p.m. games when it's being televised over in America, and I'm literally just across the water, it's sickening at times.
And the rationale behind it is so old school now. I mean, the world's just completely evolved and changed. Supporters behave differently and they do different. I just find that MLS, I think their new model is really working great, and it is going to help elevate the league in some ways. But, everyone plays on, some fans are upset there's no midweek game or a Sunday game, but everyone plays on Saturday. You've got everything in a package. You can hit your club stuff. There's in studio. I mean, it's a very, very well presented package. I just think I'm asking the question because the clubs have so much power, so much fandom. They monetize the business, but there's so much to monetize still. And that's why I kind of lobbed that question.
Yeah, I mean, streaming's going to be the future. Television eventually is gonna it was probably gonna be outdated at some point, and you can absolutely see the clubs turning around and saying, well, if we all band together and agree, we're gonna either leave the Premier League or form their own league or whatever, and the positions, they could sell the rights to view their competitions however they want. You'd think.
That was the basis of the Super League, right?
Yeah.
Do you think Sky Sports had the rights to Super League? Would they have complained about the Super League?
Not really.
Absolutely.
And that's why Arsenal joined, because they felt as though if they didn't,
right.
they'd be at a significant disadvantage to those guys. So whilst we were all really angry at the club, and rightly, because the idea of the Super League in its structure that it was being, put forward as was ludicrous, but I didn't really have necessarily an anger at Arsenal for joining it, because I absolutely understood why they did. Because if it had have gone ahead, what on earth would have happened to Arsenal Football Club from a competitive standpoint, from a financial standpoint, So it's delicate ground. People won't necessarily like that. I understand that, but that's the reality,
You know how some people are keeping Arteta receipts? Well, I'm keeping the Kroenke receipts. Just wanted everyone to know.
Which ones?
I just got a few. I'm just saying. Anyway.
Yeah, like there's a few. I am Josh Kroenke saying that he will never. We'll never see a home competitive league game played away from North London. That's the one I'm holding on to more than any other, because, the more you see the Spanish Super Cup played in the Middle East, things like that, it's, for me, that's not the way forwards. I know that there's a lot of listeners of the channel that tell me differently, that are obviously based in those countries and feel that they're denied access to games because Arsenal obviously are located in North London, or pre-season in just one location every summer, and so that's becoming more and more just US based because of our links, of course, over there. It's back-to-back US trips now we've had. So I get that, but for me, there are some games that you can play outside. The Club World Cup is a great chance to spread club football around the world, no matter what you might think of that. But a Premier League home game has to be played in the home stadium of that team, period. Like it would, if it's not, it delegitimizes. That's a tricky word to say. The whole competition, because as I've mentioned in an argument before, if say last game of the season you're playing Leeds at home, and your title rivals are playing at home against another side further down the table, and your home game is designated to be abroad on the last game of the season, you're at a disadvantage because that game that you've played is no longer a home advantage for you. So you can't justify it being fair across the whole campaign. I'm not saying it's never going to happen, because the way in which the world works, it probably will.
That's what NFL fans used to say.
Well. Sorry, Soph, would you say?
That's what NFL fans used to say.
Exactly. And where do we see the NFL now? In London. So, yeah.
One thing I will say, I mean, when I was in the Middle East for a week while games were going on, it's really hard to find highlights. Like, I got used to my 17-minute NBCN highlights after matches and being able to watch that. And in Jordan, it was so hard to even find like 3 minutes of quality highlights.
Really?
So it was, and it's all TV rights, right? So it was really hard to find that. So I can understand some of what they're saying, not in terms of home games, just in terms of access to some of those things. Just depending on what region you're in, it becomes exorbitantly more difficult.
If only, Raj, you had have watched Tom's 8 a.m. morning shows, you would have got a good code for NordVPN.
I'm going to have to edit that bit out of the section. That's fine. I'm used to doing that now these days. No, I think that it's just going to be a thing that eventually transpires and increases gradually, and we'll probably see, Community Shield games played in Australia, or played in the Middle East, or played in South America, or Africa even. It's going to happen eventually. I don't like it, and Josh Kroenke's promised it won't, but we'll see what indeed does happen in the future. Before we wrap up today's show, there was kind of a fun thing that we were going to do before we did that. You can notice that two of us are wearing Arsenal tops, because the preparedness of this podcast is like no other. No, it's my fault. I don't give them enough warning, is what I don't do. But in this morning's, or yesterday morning's 8 a.m. show, someone asked me what my most memorable, or what Arsenal shirt I'm attached to the most. So I thought it'd be fun if the last thing we did on the SARP podcast today was discuss that. I've got, and I'm wearing, the 2012-13 home shirt, which was the shirt of the first season I was able first ever able to go to Arsenal and watch Olivier Giroud score his first Arsenal goal, of which he is on the back of this shirt, on the same day that I shared the first kiss with my future wife. I will add that point in because it's a very important part of my life. And that was genuinely best day ever. You meet your future wife for the first, well, not for the first time, but that experience for the first time. And you watch your first Arsenal game. You cannot make it up. It is genuinely a great memory. But I also got the guys to bring in theirs and get their memories. Raj, we'll start with you because obviously you've not got yours to hand because you were in the office when I asked, because that's my fault. But tell us what shirt you're most attached to that you own.
I have an Invincible shirt that probably has a couple holes in it by now, but that to me is probably, I think that's just kind of the pinnacle. Not pinnacle, but it was just, an incredible season. And there's just so many storylines throughout that. So, and that's probably what I hold on to most. So I have, a number of kits that I have, but in terms of when you ask me kind of one shirt, it's kind of an Invincible shirt that I have, and it has like outlines of some of the players that, and so with Wenger there and like the gold, the gold trophy. So that for me is really what I hold on to in terms of anything to one shirt.
Iconic, absolutely iconic. Owen, you're wearing yours. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one because we make really nice shirts as a football club. We do. Don't get me wrong. There's been some absolute tragedies of the, but we were talking before the podcast, and I was saying it doesn't necessarily mean the fashion of the shirt, the design of the shirt. I think you get attached to a shirt because what it makes you feel. And it's funny because when you asked me about the shirt, which one I'd want to wear, I remember when I was a kid, going to school and stuff like that, and coming out, and there was something about the Arsenal badge that even this one, not even the old one, even this one, there was something royal about it, something very intimidating about it. I felt you walked around with your chest puffed out when you were wearing the Arsenal badge, and it was one of those things back in the day that you were walking about with and pardon the pun, but a level of invincibility about you. When there was the playground banter of slagging each other's football teams, nobody could really have a pop at you when you were an Arsenal fan. And for years, that polish was sort of wiped away from the crest, and people were, walking around with their Arsenal jerseys on at times, duping their heads and trying to stay out of those conversations. And this season, I find going to play a five-a-sider when I wear my Arsenal jersey out, that feeling's back again. And for me, this jersey, I think, really embodies that sort of swagger of Arsenal. Remember Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp, Robert Perez walking around, these guys walking around as if they were gods on earth. And not only that, there, we were mentioning there, Tom, you were talking about the fact that games being played away from North London. And for me, while I might sound old school or small-minded, to me, tradition matters. Tradition is really, really important. And as somebody that isn't even from, the Highbury area or the North London area, it matters to me. And that's why this jersey's, I think, so important to me, because it's a recognition of not only where we were going, but where we came from. And whilst the move from Highbury was completely necessary, it's always important, I think, for Arsenal fans to have Highbury in their mind and still have it in their head that we are that sort of local, small, intimidating club. Even though we're in this big shiny new stadium that isn't that shiny anymore, but it's a bit shinier now because they've done some work.
Shinier, yeah.
Yeah.
It needs a bit more polishing, to be fair, still. But no, it's spoken really well. It's a memorable shirt, memorable season, of course, which ended nearly in the most perfect way possible. Maybe we'll avenge that one day. Sophie, you've got yours to hand, I know.
I do. I have mine to hand, but I'm not going to add anything because Owen just put it beautifully and perfectly. And I feel that so is restored, like to wear whatever and be proud. And it's just incredible. And for the kids today to be spoiled for choice about the players they're going to put on the back of their shirt. I love that away shirt, the O2, I'm a huge fan of the yellow and the blue, right? I love it. And I was born in 71. My favorite piece is actually my 1971 double winning year sweatshirt. It's the FA Cup final. And it's so like iconic and vintage. 79, sorry. 71 is the year I was born. 79, and I just love this, and I love the old cannon as well on it. I'm not doing a very good job of showing it, but I just love this match. It was one of my first real kind of big memories. Crazy Alan Sunderland, that match was insane. 3-2, really iconic. So this is my favorite, and I love that 02 blue collar with the little V there, you know that, but the away shirt, I love that. I'm a real sucker for the old school stuff.
Yeah, no, we had that shirt in 2013-14, the away shirt, the yellow one with the blue collar that Ozil joined in as well. They really went old school with that one. The away kit for next season is supposedly going to be yellow, but not that yellow, which is annoying. It's like that limey yellow that we had before, with a bruised banana-y type effect, apparently. So we'll see how that one turns out. But there's a lot of gold on the home kit for next season in celebration.
This is awesome because I love like the yellow that's kind of meant to be gold. Do you know what I mean? I love that there's going to be gold on stuff. All about it.
Yeah. I think the black will be iconic too. I mean, it's an incredible design in my opinion. Season. Oh, it's an incredible. In terms of favorite kit, that's probably my favorite kit of all time. And then you look at the season, like if the season pans out how we hope, like you have the kit in a massive inflection point year. I think fast forwarding whatever 4 or 5 years, I think that's the kit a lot of people will look at. That means a lot to them.
Because that black kit, I don't know, like it's
rivaled the bruised banana. It really has.
Yeah, it's the modern iteration of that retro style.
100%. Yeah.
I'm so annoyed though, because it's like you, Tom. It's the best Arsenal kit ever made, in my opinion. As somebody who loves to wear black, it's just right up my street. But I'm really, man,
very slimming.
It needs to be super slimming for me. Is there anything? But it really annoys me the fact that forever, as much as I love that kit, Aston, our co-host in the Gooner Pod, is always going to be the face of that kit, and he's such an idiot. He'll never let us.
Honestly, no, but that's an amazing thing. We are going to round things off there. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. As always, you can join our Strava group at www.strava.com/clubs/ESARP. So make sure you join that. Sophie, thank you for your time. Much appreciated, as always.
Thank you for having me. Great to see you guys and a lovely chat.
Absolutely. Owen, always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, as always. We should do this again sometime, like next Tuesday.
We should. Yeah, we should. Perhaps. We'll see. And lastly, Dr. Raj, last by no means least, of course, thank you for jumping on, mate, as always.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
No problem. You can find Raj on Twitter at 3CB Performance. You can find Sophie at Highbury Squad, and of course the fantastic channel over there as well. And you can find Owen at EOIN Young AFC on Twitter as well. That's Owen, just Irish. But thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Drop a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you again very soon. Have a fantastic day, and as always, up the Arsenal.